It's Friday! Yes!
Yay!
The end of the week. Well done, you've made it. And this is the final of our Sunny Hill Take 5 offerings for this week on the theme of faith. Now, on Monday, we're going to be jumping into the book of Genesis.
Yeah, we are.
But we've got a great way to land our readings this week with a passage from 2 Timothy 1 verse 5. So over the course of this week, we've looked at many different kind of aspects of faith. We've looked at faith that you need vision to kind of just run into Jericho and enter into all that God has for you. You need faith to obey, faith to praise, faith that kind of doesn't always have the answers, but just takes that leap anyways.
Faith that causes you to pour out.
Faith that causes you to pour out rather than just to look to receive. And today we're looking at kind of cross-generational faith. Now, what do I mean by that?
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
Well, let's jump into it together. It's only one verse today, but again, I encourage you, why not read the whole chapter, get a bit of context. But it's 2 Timothy 1 verse 5. Paul says this to Timothy: I am reminded of your sincere faith. In other words, Timothy had a real faith, an authentic faith, a genuine faith. I think in this, Paul is saying, like, you genuinely love Jesus, you genuinely care about his purposes, and you're committed to the work. And Paul says, I'm reminded of your sincere faith, which first lived in your grandmother Lois and in your mother Eunice, and I'm persuaded now lives in you also. I think so often in life, we think about inheritance. We think about maybe one day what we may receive from those who go before us, our parents, our grandparents. And certainly I think about, what am I going to leave? What am I going to leave for my children in terms of assets, estate, finance? Like, are they going to have a kind of nice little offering when we go, when we step off the planet into heaven, into glory? A bit depressing. Appreciate that.
Keep it up.
But often, you know, when we think about these matters of inheritance, I think we think more about material asset rather than these spiritual blessings. Like in this instance, Paul is saying, your faith, Timothy, actually didn't originate with you. It didn't even originate with your mother. Potentially it originated with your grandmother. And I think like the big thing for me today is to think about, what is it that we're passing on?
Yeah.
What is it we're passing on? Now, you may have children, you may not have children, maybe you want children one day, but even with your friendship circles, even with those key relationships in your life, it doesn't just flow down, it flows up also. That actually the faith that you have can have an impact on the way that your mom lives, on the way that your dad lives, on the way that your boss manages his business. That actually it's a faith that impacts those around us and those nearest to us. It's a faith that crosses generations. And I just love that idea that, like in this instance, Paul is saying, I'm reminded of your genuine faith, which lived in your mother and your grandmother. And so, like, I really encourage you this weekend as we jump into kind of Saturday to think about, what is it that I'm leaving my kids? Like, how am I modelling a faith? How am I expressing my faith? How am I living my faith in such a way that my children will really stand on my shoulders, that my ceiling will be their floor that they build upon? Have you got any thoughts on that?
I think modelling faith to the people around us is really important. I think I model a private faith, and I don't always think that's helpful to my kids. When I say model a private faith, I model a quiet time by myself. Like, my kids don't always see that part of it. You know, I read my Bible away from them when I'm in a quiet room, and the Bible talks about shutting yourself in a closet to do that. So that's okay to do. But in terms of, I want my kids to be able to see me reading the Bible. I want my kids to be able to see me exercising faith. I want my friends to be able to see me doing those things as well. So it's not just about tucking yourself away and having these private moments with God, but actually allowing people to see how those private moments with God impact your public life as well. So being aware that we model something that lasts generationally is really
so
powerful.
good. And there is those two dynamics that I think are worthy of consideration. Because a faith that is modelled, but it isn't genuine, is no faith at all. And a faith that is genuine and never modelled is a faith that is only useful to the one who's living it out. And so I really encourage you today to think about, how am I genuinely building an authentic, significant, real faith, and how am I modelling that faith? I love it when Paul says, imitate me as I imitate Christ. That Paul was expressing his faith, his ministry, and his walk with God in such a way that other people could follow. But it all flowed from the genuine, authentic faith. So it's those two dynamics together that really ensure that you pass on more to your children and to those significant relationships in your life than just your money or your assets. And so as we land this week, just really encourage you to think now, as we've been trying to build into you this sense of growing in faith, to think finally today a faith that you pass on. Have a blessed weekend. Can't wait to see you on Sunday when we're going to worship to God together and we're going to rally together in the house of God with our faith, believing that God is going to speak to us. Have a blessed weekend, church. Bye.